Welcome back, everybody. This is the Shit Show, and it is episode 6. We've been doing this for 6 freaking episodes. It's crazy to think that we've been talking this much about bikes live on the internet. So I want to let you guys know about the guests that I have on board. We have a new pro, Rylan Munson. He had his debut last weekend in Houston. We're going to talk about that. We've got the Cookie Monster, Chris Cooksey. And we've got the mad scientist, Coach Robb Beams. I go to him for all my mental questions and health questions, and he tells me just to man the fuck up. And then I've got one of my friends and colleagues in crypto, AJ. He's a writer for BitBoy Crypto. He's been to Loretta a couple times in the B class, and he had to get a real job because we all know that dirt bikes don't pay anything. So how are you guys doing?
We are doing good, man. Thanks for having us all.
Yeah,
Awesome,
a blast.
awesome.
Johnny, I already like AJ better than you, just so you know.
Well, that's okay. That's okay.
That'll
Lots of
change,
people
man.
like AJ better.
Hey,
than
that's
me.
all right. Ryan Brinks can't stand me, so I'm gonna keep talking. He called me the Deegan hater.
Johnny, but it's not about how much you like the person. It's about how big of a dick they have, right?
I also
Okay,
want to clear.
right.
Hold
All
on,
right,
I want to
enough
clear
joking
something
around.
up.
Rylan,
Go ahead.
you're down there in Florida. How did your debut go in Houston? Was it crazy how fast those guys go?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. I think a big thing also was, they put me in B group, and a lot of that B group got to do press day. So pretty much from lap 1 of free practice, they already knew the rhythms and the track, and, I was trying to figure things out. And when you're thrown in with that, it's hard to kind of learn when they've all, got it all down already pretty much. So it was awesome. Aside from that, though, it was awesome.
You make a good point, dude. Like, okay, so when you see the track first and you're going out for qualifying and everyone around you is already doing major rhythms, is it difficult to try to roll everything and then try to turn around and start jumping anything? Is it kind of intimidating because everyone had that unfair advantage? Or how did you execute stuff? Did you tell yourself, hey, I'm just going to roll everything 1 lap and then I'm going to kind of double, and then 3rd lap, I'm going to try to push and then take a break and get another hot lap in? What was your strategy?
Yeah. And I definitely wouldn't, I don't know that I would say like an unfair advantage, because those kids have earned that. And that's my goal, is to earn that to be at press day. So, it is what it is. And my whole plan was to go in and just learn the track as fast as I could. But I think I went in and just tried too hard to go fast right off the bat to keep up with them, and just blew up right away. It was pretty much rolled my first lap, and then I just hit everything. I hit the triple, I hit the finish, I just hit everything 2nd lap. And yeah, it's hard they already have the rhythm, so they're not just jumping it, they're pushing through it. So you can't really follow them to time anything. So you're kind of just trying to like double and then make sure you're not in the way, really. Because, when they're on a heater, you don't want to be that guy and be in the way. So you just got guys jumping over you, triple in when you're trying to learn the speed to hit the triple, just things like that.
All right. But before we get started with any of the other things, I'm going to ask you one more question, Rylan. Do you have any like goal in mind, personal goal? You want to make the main, you want to make the night show? Like what is your personal goal for Tampa being your 2nd Supercross?
Definitely goal. My main goal this weekend is just be better. 100% was was very disappointed with my result last weekend. I was pleased with my riding, but my goal this weekend is to get the night show. That's always my goal for this year, is to really just get into those night shows and get more riding and more learning. So yeah, that's my main goal for this weekend, is just get into that night show.
Awesome, brother. Well, thank you for being on board on this crazy internet show. So, Cooksey, the internet has blown up about the Deegans and a potential rumor that was not a rumor of this whole protesting scenario where the bikes didn't go to impound and no. What is your take on 250s running illegal parts or motors, or do you think maybe Firepower Honda could potentially be having stuff that's on the gray area there?
Anybody on a team that expects to be on the podium, if they're cheating, they're a lot less obvious than a 280 kit. There's almost zero chance they're running a 280 kit. Is there something illegal? Probably. I mean, that guys change frames, they do all sorts of illegal stuff, but I don't think that bike is. Now, if I'm Rylan, and I know for a fact your goal is to get in the night show, and I'm pretty sure, Rylan, I don't want to insult you, but I don't think you're going to be on the podium next week. I would run a big bore if I were you. I cheated when I rode Supermoto, and I would cheat there.
Love it.
You make a good point. You make a good point. I mean,
how many ex-pros have said, yeah, I ran a big bore? And I actually talked to a team manager who laughed and said, you should be allowed to run a big bore if Star can run their bike. I mean, he said that in jest. So
absolutely. AJ, do you think that this was maybe a scare tactic used by some of the teams because you've got a semi-privateer team competing with an actual full-blown front runner that wins championships?
I mean, it's hard to tell. Like, to be honest, I don't think Anstey was running a big bore. I think he was just riding it. He was full send. He was really aggressive the whole race. I've seen Anstey ride, last summer, him and Brandon Hartraft were at Snake Creek the Wednesday before Budds Creek. And I was there that day riding, and it was really muddy. And Anstey went by me like it was dry and hard packed. And the guy is hella aggressive. And I just think that, after spending so much time in the 450 class, him stepping down on a somewhat competitive motorcycle, that he's destined to be in the top 3. I think he's going to be really consistent just because of his experience.
No, that's a good take. Coach.
Well, this guy won MXGP at the highest level. So,
yeah, exactly. I mean, he's no joke. Anstey is no joke. Yeah, he's real fast.
Coach, question I'm asking you is, you've got Jordan Smith, who was on the podium. He was on that Firepower Honda team last year, and now he kind of knows what that bike is about. What do you think actually went on with not bringing that bike to impound? Do you think that potentially you could switch a bike and bring a different bike to impound, or why do you think that Hunter and both Max Anstey did not go straight to impound with those motorcycles on for the podium?
Award ceremony and champagne. No. If you don't mind, Johnny, I'd like to kind of back the narrative up just a moment. You remember how you guys said, and AJ was shaking his head pretty emphatically, that a lot of guys after they retire admit, confess, come forward, come clean that they were running a big bore kit. And I want you to draw a parallel between the motorcycle and look at human performance drugs, PEDs, performance enhancing drugs. I've said it for years. If you look at the pedigree of a junior, and then all of a sudden when you guys start to get to the top of the spear, 1% improvements is what you're looking for. Sometimes 0.5%, sometimes even 0.25%. And then all of a sudden you see a 9% improvement at the very top level. I'm using very loose percentages just for illustration's sake. Then when you have a guy that comes clean and says, hey, look, I was on PEDs and I got 3rd place. Does it ever stop and dawn on you that if this dude in 4th place is using PEDs, what do you think the 3 guys at top are doing? If you know anything about human performance and performance enhancing drugs, if the 4th place guy gets caught, because everybody's in that top 0.5% of the best in the world, now we go to the big bore. If somebody comes clean and says, hey, look, I was running a big bore kit, how on God's green earth can we say I'm running a 280 kit, I'm running a 310 kit, 320 kit, and I got beat? Because it's not like they're racing against me. They're racing against an AJ, a Hopper, a Chris, a Rylan, where you guys are the best of the best of the best. And I know I'm running a cheater motor, and then I get out drag raced down a straightaway where there's nothing, no technique involved, just twist the throttle and hang the balls out, and I'm getting pulled. You start to see the parallels between cover up, lie, cover up, lie, cover up, lie. And I'm not accusing anybody of lying. It's just a big game of charades that cycling has done for decades, centuries, decades of everybody's doing something. It's just who can outdo the other one, and then kind of play, or like you always say, Johnny, it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. And then you just kind of play this rotating game of, and Johnny, it brings back the full circle back to your original question. I feel like there was an arrow shot across the bow of the boat to say, keep running your mouth, guys. We'll see what happens here. Keep running your mouth. See what happens here. Because now all of a sudden, because Johnny, you put it up there, whoever that original quote was, it said there was a protest that was filed. And then in typical motocross fashion, we have the I'll just call it the mouth of the sport that goes out and says, no, that didn't happen. Oh, isn't that interesting? Just because he says it, we're all supposed to believe it, even though you had somebody who was quoted as saying that there was a protest that was filed. And then all of a sudden, what was first attempted to be diluted came clean and said, oh, by the way, Hunter's bike didn't show up. And now all of a sudden, a little more of the story starts to evolve. But yet, if you just went off of the voice that, oh, there was no protest put together. Well, there was a protest put together. Well, that's what I'm trying to get people to understand is the bow of the boat was shot over with a flare to say, keep running your mouth and watch what happens. It's exactly what we saw with Deegan. And Johnny, you brought this up as well. Deegan's bike was protested. It was claimed. And then I apologize. Was it Ryder D or whoever's bike, Jet? One of the Cowie boys was selling their bike a couple weeks later. What was that selling for?
It was selling for like 40, 50 grand, I believe.
For a 250, and yet we just saw.
And that's supposed to be an amateur bike, though.
That's my point. But if it wasn't for the claiming rule, it wouldn't have peeled back the layers of the onion to start to bring light to the fact that all of these guys, and then all of a sudden we see a $40,000 250 bike being sold by another color of a bike. Forget being against one rider. The bike was claimed. Another color bike is for sale for $40,000 2 weeks later in the same exact class, and yet people don't see that. And
Dude,
then you
I've
get
literally
Roxon's
raised,
bike
even
at
locally,
Pro Circuit for what was Roxon's price for that Pro Circuit bike?
$30K, but that was Pro
30K.
Circuit's bike that they were gonna show them. I'm sure they probably took a lot of stuff off of that bike, and then they were selling the other stuff for $30K. But your
don't
point
miss
is
the point. A 450 for $30K and a 250 for $40K. You see, to me, it's a big question mark.
I just want to interject in. We heard a whole bunch about this 280 kit. What's going to happen? He missed impound. Had Hunter not missed impound, would it have been a different outcome? Would they have maybe penalized him? But since Hunter, who is part of the partners of the promotion, which is Honda, it gets a little fishy. Do you think they backed off because of that, Johnny?
You make a good point, dude. And probably exactly, because then it becomes, hey, how come you gave a privateer team a larger penalty than a factory team, but they couldn't go and do that? That is an interesting point. And Rylan and AJ, dude, this is the shit show. So if you guys need to interject and you have something you have to say, just start talking and we'll shut up. We'll figure it out from there. You know,
Johnny won't, but Coach and I'll zip it.
I try to just talk louder is the thing. And then I also have like a handy dandy mute button that I can block everybody with, but
nice.
dictator. Rylan, you are into racing too, dude. I've been to even races where guys have 350s and they just take off the sticker and they like buy 250 stickers and try to get away with that shit. You know, like cheating has been around forever. And unfortunately, I feel that there's a lot of prima donnas in racing motorcycles where it is apparent that you try to ask for forgiveness and you don't even want to get caught with something and you cry wolf when somebody does try to protest you, dude. How fast were those bikes there? I mean, they could just be tuned incredibly. We're speculating and hypothetical, but how fast were those bikes since it was being your first Supercross ever?
They were fast. But so one question I have, I don't know if any of you guys know, I didn't really keep up with the whole protest thing or anything. What did it ever come out? Like, did he have the 280 or like, was it just speculation?
It was just a rumor.
Protest? Did it ever come out? Okay.
Yeah, it was just a rumor. There actually was no protest. There was just a rumor that they were going to protest, but it turns out that there was just the bike didn't go to impound to potentially be torn down to check for stuff. So people out there, they just wanted to play pit politics is what I call it.
The funny thing about that, and then I'll answer your question, is I actually stayed to watch the night show. And when me and my girlfriend were walking out of the stadium and we got walked out of wrong way. So I cut through, wanted to stay out of the crowd. So I just cut through by the AMA semi, and Hunter Lawrence, Max Anstey, and the other Jordan Smith, all their bikes were at impound. And I overheard the AMA guy talking about just reminding them that you guys got to come right here. But so they all did go to impound. So there's obviously, that was all I wanted to say, was I wasn't sure if there was any speculation. They obviously have an answer, because all those bikes did end up at impound eventually.
Wow. Good to know. That's good to know.
I love it. Rylan bringing the inside scoop.
Yeah, I like that. Do that every single week. And maybe get
That was
like a
all
little
because I
mic
used
and
my
hang it over.
credential and
Yeah.
cut through where we wanted to be out of the crowd.
Yeah,
like
Rylan is our designated fact checker of the shit show.
I love it.
So thank you for that.
No,
But yeah, to answer your question, was just, yeah, those bikes are, I mean, everybody knows the Star bikes are putting out some serious power. I'm on a stock 250F. I've got an exhaust. And I was lined up next to Phoenix Honda on my qualifying start and ran right with him down the start. So I pride myself on that. But, you know, those Star bikes and the Firepower bikes, those are just, you know, they're putting out some serious power for sure. But, you know, like you said, Johnny, with the tuning and, I mean, just the exhaust, the engine packages, everything those guys have, they're putting out serious power to. And I believe, in my honest opinion, I think that they were 250s, just extremely well-tuned, well-built 250s. So.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, just the amount of R&D is unobtainium compared to what anyone else could have, to be able to just piece and part different packages together to make this bike literally the best it can be for a certain rider is what makes them so good, and having the resources to do that. That's why I'm so for having a stock class where you just let talent be the only indicator, not having a motorcycle on top of that. But do you think that generalizing like the racing community, that there is a little tit for tat where you poke each other, as far as if you're thinking that maybe you think I'm going to do something wrong, I'm going to find that you're doing something wrong there. Like, even the industry has an ego problem, or can be egotistical towards, hey, we're the top dog, we're the top team, we're going to kind of take anyone down that tries to overthrow us. Do you feel that there might be some of that going on here, or no? You know, that's an overall question for everybody.
I feel like 100%. I mean, it's obvious that there's always been a big frustration between like the gap between like a privateer and a factory pro, and there's always like a big lack of transparency. And like the truth is that people want to see an honest race. People want to see who's the most talented guy on the skate, but we don't get to do that because there is a separation between the motors and the factory teams to the privateer riders. And there's always the people that are like, well, if this privateer rider got a month to ride on a Star bike, like, you'll never know what would happen. So like, I completely agree that there should be some sort of stock class to kind of even it out. I kind of think like all the factory riders could be in one class, and then there could be more racing. I mean, I was at the Nationals when they did the 125 race, and now that they're doing the Futures race, like, and more racing for the fans with more classes, giving more riders a chance to win races. I tried to, kind of hard to argue that being a bad thing. Just having two classes is kind of a disservice to motocross and how many people actually race in the sport.
Everybody in the chat room, they all agree that a stock class is important as well, but it doesn't need to take away from the classes that we have, so that you still have all the industries with FMF and everyone else building pieces and parts for it, but it should be an added class to there. And there's nothing against the sport. We're trying to debate on ways to potentially fix a problem. You know, we're not trying to tear the whole system down. We just want to literally, that's what the show is about, is debating on things that are going right and things that potentially could be changed.
Well, it'll be interesting this weekend when you look at the longer straightaways. Do we see a lot of parity to what we saw last weekend? And I think it's going to be an interesting play out here, because if somebody was sending a note, hey, we're, you know, to what AJ was saying there, we're kind of we're putting you on notice. Hey, we're not here to play games. If you're going to narc on us, we're going to narc on you, and we're going to kind of start exposing each other. Well, as the old saying goes, you know, horsepower is always evident on long straightaways. And we're about to see a lot of that this weekend. And it'll be very, very interesting if somebody's all of a sudden, and we're just, for the sake of the chat room, we're speculating. We're not trying to create drama. We're not trying to create a fictitious story, but I'm just saying, bear with me here. Want to be interesting if we see a dramatic change in the way the race plays out. Max Anstey, fastest qualifier. A lot of people were surprised. Ends up second on the podium. A lot of people were surprised by that. We're sitting here talking about, like Rylan said, obviously they've got the bikes highly tuned and things are going great. All of a sudden we don't see, I'm just going to call it what it is. All of a sudden we see the bikes not running the same setup that it was last week. And now we see a big horsepower change, and we start seeing the bikes dramatically not being the strong ones down the long straightaways. And all of a sudden there's a big momentum shift in the speed. And it'll be because we know the stars, they're going to be like this all the time. And we're not going to see anything deviate from those. Deegan's bike's going to be flying. We hope the ruts are developed like they were last week, because it was art, poetry, emotion to watch him rail those ruts. However, if all of a sudden we see a dramatic change in the play out of quote unquote the horsepower game, it will be evident on this track this weekend.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Are we to just gloss over the fact that Coach called people narcs? I'm not sorry. That's too good.
Well, it goes back to, like Johnny said, is there this little, AJ confirmed it as well. Yes, I think they're sending some subtle messages to one another that, again, if you look at how this whole conversation, this thread of conversation
maybe
got
it's
started.
Like the Big Brother paradox.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
All right, I'm immature. I just think the word narc's funny.
Somebody said there was a protest, and then that protest led to, hey, the bikes didn't make it to impound. Is that a deflection? Is that, hey, what's going on here?
Yeah, people in the chat room say even if there was a stock class, people like Hopper and Cooksey would figure out a way to cheat.
It's true.
and honestly, just commenting on that, dude, as a young kid, I never would cheat. And I know that this is it's something that I shouldn't be saying, but the industry has jaded me to the point where I wish I cheated at a younger age. And because you get more resources based off of your results, not necessarily how talented you are. And I think that the cheating starts from a young age in amateurs. You got a dad that has a lot more resources with money wise. They beef up their motors and blah, blah, blah. I even know, and I've talked to some really high profile athletes that are been retired and and they talk about even little kids doing PEDs and this sort of thing, which is just ridiculous to me that even potentially would happen. But turning to a more highlight.
AJ had a good point before you cut him off, Johnny. AJ had something going you were going to say? No?
My train of thought kind of went into what Johnny was saying, but basically I agree with this. Like, if you're racing, you're cheating 100%. Like, growing up, my dad owned a motorcycle shop in Cecilton, Maryland, and all my bikes were bone stock. And I ripped every hole shot, and it was literally, but he didn't tell me at the time. He actually ended up telling me years later, because he didn't want me to know, because he wanted me to think, to gain my confidence, which makes sense. But looking back, but at the same time, when I lined up on a real gate at the Minios, I didn't whole shot Stroop on the bike I had. I didn't whole shot Nico Izzy on the bike I had, and my bike was a rocket ship. So it's definitely, if you're racing, you're cheating, and it's just kind of hard to figure out who's who. And the lack of transparency is an element of the sport, and kind of getting with that and just accepting it is a big part of the experience of racing.
And Johnny, I want to add to what Bucky just said in the chat room there, saying that the AMA controls it and YouTubers' opinions aren't going to make an influence on anything. I'm going to politely disagree, because if you go back to the claiming that went on at Loretta's, if we didn't have social media and we didn't have YouTube to talk about it, it would have been completely pushed to the side and nothing would have come about it. So I politely disagree with you. We know that we are not going to be influencing the AMA. We understand that. It's really not called the AMA. It should be called another association. But the idea here is, what you've got to recognize is, if somebody does get caught cheating, you're not going to be able to bury it and hide it the same way that Johnny showed that somebody put it out there that there was a legitimate protest. But then again, those that don't want it out there immediately go out. They try to get their spin going as quickly as they can to try to deflect and diffuse the situation. Just like when someone says what we talk about on here doesn't have an impact, if you saw some of the direct messages that we get behind the scenes, I'll politely tell you that you're incorrect, and I'll just leave it at that.
Oh yeah, I get messages all the time from people, and it comes with a caveat like, hey, you can't release this to the public, and it's high profile players, team managers, etc. in the industry, which I just find it interesting because there is a big lack of transparency to everything. And I guess open question, because
Johnny, my favorite is when they actually call you and say, nobody else will say this. Can you put this out there?
no, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we both got a couple of
are
those. So
the biggest deal. And then 2 weeks later, then you've got other people commenting on stuff like this. And
that whole bike claim thing, I believe I was the first one to come out with it. So
yeah, no. And you were talking to me like a week before you even put stuff together, because you were going that how huge this was freaking
I
going
wanted
to
to make
be.
sure it had all the sources. So
yeah, no, you're much more of a journalist than I am. I'm like a comedian / analyst here. But last little question for the panel here is, do you believe that at some point that it's going to get so out of control that the Feld, MX Sports, AMA are going to need to find a high profile scapegoat to kind of lay down the law and say, hey, we caught such and such cheating, and now there's like a lifetime ban or something? Do you think that will ever happen, or do you think we're quite a ways away from something like that?
It depends on if you're talking about like using performance enhancing drugs or modifications to your motorcycle. It kind of depends which form of cheating you're talking about. Cause I kind of think with like performance enhancing drugs, like we've seen how far things could go, even with James Stewart taking Adderall. Like we've seen how kind of terrible that whole system is and how you can get wrapped up in it for so long. Even if you thought you had the right paperwork, it's just such a gray area. And like, it's kind of just like, it feels like if you're not in the in club, then you're not allowed to do what the people in the in club are probably doing. Like, so there's that. And it also kind of goes to if like, say, someone protested Hunter's bike and it was hot or something like that, like what they would do in a situation if it was on the motorcycle's behalf. It's kind of interesting to look into that. But like I said, the lack of transparency is a part of the experience. So I don't know.
You know what, AJ brings up a good point though, because the whole Adderall situation with Stewart, and I'm not arguing with you, AJ, but you peel back the onion just a little bit. The penalty that came down for getting popped with Adderall for not having an adequate TUE filed, is that WADA's mishandling of the situation. So for example, let's say that you're WADA, I hire you. WADA says, hey, look, if you test positive for this product, this is the penalty that we lay down. And you go, yep, no problem. I'm hiring you still. You're saying that if someone gets popped for a TUE exemption or lack of following it or whatever, the penalty is 4 years. And you go, that's your business. I don't really care. And then whammo, one of your top guys gets popped and you say, well, that was the rule and regulation because the governing body handed over that jurisdiction process to WADA. Well, if WADA takes 2 years to get it going, you can't blame WADA. They're backed up. Now, again, I know there's a lot of politics involved with that. Mm-hmm. But again, I have to go back to the world of deflection. If I hire a service to do their job and I'm unhappy with how long it takes for them to process it and I disagree with their penalty, isn't the burden on me to do my due diligence to say, okay, what if somebody does pop? It doesn't matter if it is me or if it at the time was James Stewart. See, that's where I have a problem with. It's like you hired a company to do its job and they do their job and then everyone says, oh, it's a debacle. Well, then the person that hired them should have
you got it wrong. They hired them to look like they do the job.
Good point.
Well, see, not even just that. I kind of feel like that there was a lack of communication on do the riders know how long it would take before that situation happened?
Exactly. There it is. It wasn't conveyed to them.
Exactly. Yep. And another thing is that look at how small of a window a professional motocross supercross career is. It's a very small, fleeting window. And anyone that got caught up in that, especially for a year plus at a time, it's just really sad. Like, I think there should be more monetary fines and required drug tests instead of taking away from a rider's ability
and isn't
to go out there
Adderall a diuretic as well?
I don't know. It's an amphetamine. I know that.
Sorry, I'm just going on to stuff. Rylan, he's over there with his eyes glazed over with everything. Like crazy shit going on.
Hey, can I ask Rylan something?
Go for it, Cooksey.
Rylan, did you see the track? And what do you think of, normally the whoop pads are about 10 whoops, right? They got 13 whoops in that whoop pad and then almost like a sand rhythm section. What do you think? What tire are you running first off?
So I'm running just the standard 33, MX 33. I kind of was teetering on going to a sand mud tire because we've got some rain in the forecast, but it's looking like we're going to have a pretty dry track for at least the first qualifying. I did watch press day and it's very dry, a lot of dust, but everything looks good. The whoops are really long, like you said. The rhythms look fairly simple. There's a dragon's back that's I never went to the side of it, but I saw him coming at me and it looks like there's like 5 whoops on it. So it looks like it's a little bit of a longer one than normal. But then the sand. I love the sand being down here in Florida and I'm a tall guy. So I just lean off the back and hold the pin. So I'm excited. The sand looks insane. I think it's going to be a real big deciding factor in the weekend. Coming out of the sand they've got a split lane and the inside is like super tight. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it shapes up.
I was showing Dino's video of the press.
I just watched that. Yeah.
It looks pretty cool. The sand section. What do you guys think of the passing places on this damn track? I believe it's just going to be the sand and the whoops because, like what Rylan said, is all the other sections look fairly simple.
The corner after the finish line is going to be a big one. The corner after the finish line is exactly. It's real flat. People are going to want to go outside to get speeds, do the bigger rhythm, and then someone's going to cut underneath. Probably our favorite people that take people out, and then we all talk about it all week long. But necessary evil of the sport. I hate. I'm completely against the people who want to take the contact out of a contact sport. But a really interesting part of the track is the dragon back section. I was hoping that they would be able to like single and then step over the table and then jump onto the dragon's back and triple off it. I don't think it's going to happen because of the way the dragon's back is built on Dino's GoPro on his Instagram. And they also took one single out of the end of the dragon back rhythm section. There's one less single there.
Yeah, because
I'm really excited for the race tomorrow. Triple. I tried to talk my girlfriend into driving 6 hours to Tampa, but she has to work. I even told her to take off. I'd fund the whole thing. It's all right, but maybe next time.
Real quick, somebody's asking about Vince in the chat room. I think Vince Freezy, he tore his Achilles tendon.
That's actually a really good segue, Cooksey, as far as injuries go. Why the heck are so many riders coming down with practice injuries? Like there's a lot of riders that have been injured during racing, but there's also been a lot of them that have gotten hurt while practicing. Romano's one, Haymaker, Sh1t, Mumford.
Basically every pro circuit guy.
Yeah, like every pro circuit guy. And that's one of those things, like you have certain deals with Heart Raft where Heart Raft crashed, but that was like a bike malfunction. I mean, dude, the sport is so freaking dangerous. And yeah, we bitch and moan about how much they make as far as money wise, but why do you think so many riders are getting injured during practicing? Like Rylan, when you go out and practice, dude, are you practicing as hard or harder as you would race, or what has been your strategy?
I think that guys are getting hurt. My honest opinion is this sport has just everyone, the level is just getting higher and higher and higher. And guys want to win, and it just takes, I had a good one a couple weeks ago before Houston. It just takes one tiny mess up on Supercross and you're done. You're over the bars. Actually, me and the guy I was riding with both in the same week had a pretty good get off. So that's my opinion. I don't personally go wide open every single time. I don't really find the point in that. I think Robb and I talk about this a lot. You have to go slow before you can go fast off the bike. And I kind of think that is the same on the bike in Supercross. If you can just start flowing and get, slow, smooth laps, then you can start pushing through and going faster. So I focus a lot on both. And I just think these guys are really trying to push that envelope. And it just takes one wrong thing. I mean, like we're talking about the bikes being so modded, one wrong little thing or anything goes wrong, and it's just kind of game over.
And I want to jump in. T-Cross said it's talking about the bosses watching the stopwatch. That's 100% true. I don't know if you saw when Jason Anderson did an interview where he talked about being at the baker's factory and having to wear the different stuff, or maybe it was Dean that was talking about it, but you had to wear everything and they check your lap times every day. There's no day where you can just go 90% without getting questioned, and pushing these guys to that absolute limit every single day. You're going to have one issue and bam, and it's bad. So
to Rylan's point too, who is the gentleman that filled in for Marchbanks, Chris?
Preston Kilroy.
And then ends up breaking both of his wrists last weekend.
He did
break
both
did he
of
do
them?
it through the whoops?
Yeah. So if that doesn't show you
Because of a double after the whoops?
I don't remember where he did it. I just know that he broke both of his wrists. So if that doesn't show you the discrepancy between your privateer bike and then let's call that a mid-tier bike, and then you go to the factory bikes. It reminds me when Kevin Morantz got a chance to fill in at Butler Brothers, and they gave him one day to try to set his bike up. And I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I can't imagine how stiff they run those bikes, how stiff the frames are, the suspension, the whole 9 yards. And unfortunately, there's Kilroy now with 2 broken wrists, one chance to fill in, and just like that, done for the season. So it's pretty interesting when you look at the attrition rate. I have my own ideas as to why, and I think the majority of it is, if you think about from the inside out, you think about the density of your bones, you look at the tensile strength of the tendons and ligaments, and then the what we call the viscosity of the muscle, the thickness, the health of the muscle. When you're dehydrated, when you're calorically restricted, and then you're overtrained, it's almost like leaving a boat rope in the sun and it just gets baked, and then you pick it up and you start pulling on it. It just looks like it's going to frazzle away. That's what these guys look like from the inside out. Wow. We've talked about it early on in this series. You look at Faulkner going through the whoops. What would that be now? 2 years, maybe 3 years ago. And then he kind of noses at the end and hits that left-hander. It was a big hit. I'm not minimizing it whatsoever, but for him to be that broken off of it, and you go back and you look at the days of RJ and Lachine and Bailey and those guys, when they took some diggers, they were some big diggers, but they jumped back up and got back to the bike. And I know Chris reminds me all the time, they're faster bikes, faster tracks. I get it. But when you have a human body, and if I may, Rylan, go off of what he just said, he took a really big digger, and we had to worry more about his head than we had to worry about a bone break or a tendon or a ligament tear or a muscle tear. We were doing nothing but concussion protocols. Chris, we stuck right to what you said in your own. That 60 to 90 day window, is it something that Rylan wants to hear? No. But when you ring your bell like that, what do we always say in the physiology world? Your second injury is usually worse than a byproduct of not recovering from the first one. And I understand, like AJ just said, it is a short career. We get that. But what I don't understand is, if I was a team owner with millions of dollars in R&D, I think that I would always have a 1 or a 2 rider backup plan, because I want to keep my sponsors happy. I don't want to squander my R&D. I would have my 2-man backup team riding the exact same equipment. I may or may not need to bring them in, but it's a heck of a lot less expensive to bring somebody who's already acclimated to the bike and the bike setup and the practice track. We may not use them all season long, but for me as an investor in a team, and then to now all of a sudden my 4-man pro circuit team is decimated, and now I'm looking for some fill-in riders and I'm sticking them on bikes. Chris, you said it great in your recap show, thinking that Chris would have done a little bit better on that pro circuit bike. And in all fairness, coming off the couch, as he joked about and stuff like that, that could have been avoided with a backup team, in my opinion.
Yeah, but then you get into just the whole money behind stuff.
Is that Johnny?
But riders are riding. The riders are riding for free and losing money now, as it is. So if you're going to pay me $4, I'm making more money than I did before.
Well, okay, maybe you have a good point, because I know a handful of people.
What if Rylan was given a new motorcycle once a month to keep him healthy and on par with a pro circuit bike? He's not buying a bike. He doesn't have to maintain the bike. What he's, the old saying, you guys are financial gurus. Money saved made. Well, shit. If he doesn't have to buy a new bike and it gets maintained and the motor's rotated and the frame's rotated and suspension's rotated, he may not be getting $100,000 a year salary. But if Rylan was making $5,000 a month, I think finding $120K a year for 2 riders to make $5,000 a month as a backup plan. And then you've already got the economies of scale with bikes where you're looking at only 2 more bikes that are out there. They're already doing it with the R&D team anyways. You could actually use these 2 riders as a little bit of R&D as well. Now you're spreading your risk a little bit less. Economies of scale work for
Coach,
you.
no offense, I feel like you're assuming a little bit more. I think you're assuming that there's money to go around, and I don't think there is. There's not enough to even.
Well, let me ask you this:
Okay.
Why was Chisholm getting put on the track last summer? Because there wasn't any monster representation on the star bikes. And he got paid a shitload of money to go race those outdoor nationals because the financial penalty of not having a monster logo on the track was a lot more than what they were paying Chisholm on a per weekend basis. So Johnny, the pot of money is there. And then all of a sudden there's not the right representation. So now you have just, why did JGR go away? Because Cycle Trader didn't have representation as part of the bigger problem. Go ahead, AJ. I'm sorry.
You're good, man. You're good. I like to hear what you have to say. My bit with this is that, if they had 2 riders in the back that would kind of be waiting for other people to get injured, those guys might not want to do that because then they could end up getting signed on other teams and actually have a chance to go race. I personally know a pro. I'm not going to say his name for the sake of this thing, but he was going to get a ride with PC and he didn't want to wait for someone to get injured. So he signed somewhere else. And it's a shame because he probably would have got to ride the PC bike, but he wouldn't have started from day one. So it's just one of those things, like you can't ask a new pro chomping at the bit to get out there and put in a top 10 or make mains or whatever to sit on the sidelines when they work their whole lives to get to this point. So I see your point, but if you were a 20-year-old kid and you just turned pro and you wanted to go prove yourself, you wouldn't want to not be racing on the weekends waiting for someone to get hurt. Am I right?
Well, I have to slightly disagree with you because what I think is if you're at the practice,
Cooksey agreed. Coach did it.
Because if you're at the practice track and you're getting the bike and you're shaking the bike down and Rylan's getting acclimated to this whole process and he all of a sudden, let's say Rylan gets signed and he's 3 seconds off the pace of all the PC boys. And now all of a sudden he's 1 second off and now he's on par. His confidence is up. The team's confidence is up. The sponsors are happy. And I mean, it's always 2020 is always easy. If you have a privateer that just spent $100,000 this year going racing and you told him, hey, look, if I were to pay you $60,000 a year to be a fill-in rider, you get to do all the event, you get all the perks and benefits of being at the practice track, you get all the gear, you get everything that goes with it. But hey, nobody may get hurt.
Why don't they get Tickle or something? Because he's a test rider for Cowie. I mean, why wouldn't they?
Because he said, if I'm going to do that, I need more money.
Well, see, that's why it should almost be built into that's also interesting. Like a rider isn't going to race because they see how dangerous it is. So they're going to.
But in all fairness, how much money has Brock Tickle already made and how much money has Rylan Munson made? You can't compare apples and zebras. If you've got a guy that got $1 million for a championship and he invested it properly, no, he's not going to go risk his life because he doesn't have to anymore because he's on the backside of that career. But going back to like what AJ was saying, you've got guys that are still working out of their Sprinter van trying to just make money. And again, Chris has done a phenomenal job talking about this. If we modeled it like Formula One, where a percentage of the TV revenue was to be dispersed amongst the riders, where the riders could actually get paid, I still am absolutely baffled that we are the only sport on the face of the earth. And I know Chris talked about Feld being owned by a company that owns the circus. Even a circus clown gets paid to show up. Yeah. And our athletes are paying to show up. Can you imagine going to a clown and saying, hey, we want you to be in the circus, but you got to pay us to be in the show? They'd be like, screw you.
Well, it depends.
Coach, to back up there, it's an issue. I'm interrupted you, Cooksey. It's an issue with perspective, not reality. Is the rider's perspective is, hey, we get to we're lucky enough to go race in front of 40,000 fans. And Feld and AMA, whatever, they want it to stay that way. They don't want the riders to feel as if they've got any say in it. They just want them to stay as you're lucky to do it kind of a thing. And in the way it works with the production rules, where you don't have to be on a team in order to race. You can literally come off the showroom floor and like Rylan Munson and go sign up for a Supercross race, which I think is good. I think we should have both. That's why I think we should have a stock class where you literally have a bunch of privateers that are aiming for higher rides. And then you have the money like a Formula One, so it should be more of a Formula One, F2, F3 kind of a scenario. And that's what I would like to see the sport grow into, where you keep the privateers and the guys that can just show up and sign up and race, but then you have the 10 teams that are guaranteed like a World Supercross type deal. I think there's a happy medium here. Cooksey, what were you saying?
Think about this though, Johnny. Where did the Makita money go? Where did San Manuel money go? Where did all these teams sponsor Cycle Trader, all the money and sponsors that we've seen come and go back to the need for more money? If we did a better job, look at the attrition rate we've had in the first 5 rounds of the Supercross, and we're going to go until October. And you're a sponsor that's spending money for exposure, and you're 5 rounds in and all right. I feel bad for Mitch Payton.
You've got Ferrandis, he's out with a concussion. Romano, he's out with his knee deal. Kilroy, Marv, Stewart, Munford, Forkner, Haymaker, Joe Shimoda, Derek Drake. There's a few others in there. You know what? Screw you, Cooksey.
Johnny, we should just have.
It's epic concussions as to why I have a list.
We need one show where we just have Johnny.
2022, or actually, it's 2023, and I don't appreciate the canceling of the culture.
I just want to hear Johnny read all the guys' names
here.
Wrong answers only. Yeah.
They're all wrong. That's what's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well,
don't worry. They're getting blue balled, Johnny.
If you want more money,
we're gonna quote that shit. That becomes a meme. Nobody likes being blue balled. I mean, seriously, Cooksey, am I right? Nobody likes that.
For those that didn't know, Johnny called blackballed blue balled last episode.
Yeah, that I was kind of, dude. I was watching Rugrats. Off topic. I was
oh my gosh.
Rugrats,
okay.
Wow.
Next, AJ, you got to interject here and cut
There's
Johnny off.
A main.
Really fast,
they're
Johnny.
Supposed to say, but they mix the words up.
Johnny, let AJ talk.
No, it's good. I actually want to pass it back to Coach Robb real quick. But one thing I want to say before that is that, you have the idea for the stock class. I also think on the other end of that, there should be an open class where any motor goes and they have like a big, any drugs you want, just full send open class. I think that would be just as cool as a stock class, but I think the stock class should happen first.
Just run what you brung in all categories. Run what you brung.
Yes.
Yeah, a full-blown mod bike, how they used to do it.
But Johnny, going back to what we were saying earlier, you're saying that there's limited budgets, and yet we don't have Makita money anymore. We don't have San Manuel money anymore. We don't have Cycle Trader money anymore. And I know I've heard it over and over again. Kawasaki had Mitch Payton and the whole Cowie program had Chevy back in Jave Stewart's days. I get it. And then you get a new marketing director comes in. He doesn't think that they need to continue to be a moto, and somebody with a stroke of a pen takes the money and goes into a cornhole. It's for life, man. I don't understand it. But the idea here is we tend to, even one of the guys here in the chat room here, Supertramp, talking about there's more clowns that are willing to go to the market. Well, it goes back to what we've said over and over and over again. Why is Rylan willing to pay to go race? Because he has to. If he wants to live his dream, he's got to play the game. And as we said, even in the last show, you're going to tell me that a baseball player is going to have to pay to play, and then he may or may not get paid. We get into this argument all the time with the chat room about ball and stick sports. Please, just before you start blowing up the keyboard, change your perspective. Why can a baseball team pay a baseball player a $50 million sign-on bonus and a huge salary? Because the series gets the money, the series has the television revenue. I am not into redistribution of wealth. Lord knows I am not into redistribution of wealth. I'm just talking about a profitable business model that has a literal development program as every single ball and stick sports that's out there. If we don't want to use ball and stick sports, use four-wheel. You've got your developing classes that go up, and there's sponsors that say, hey, you know what? I can't afford to be a NASCAR Cup car sponsor, but I can afford to be a second tier or what. I don't know. I'm not a four-wheel aficionado. I don't know what the sponsorship levels are, but we keep talking around the same circle. There's no money. Well, there's no money because there's no infrastructure. There's no infrastructure because there's no money. There's no money because there's no riders. No riders because there's no money.
Yeah.
shit. I mean,
Yeah.
anybody who's built a business realizes you got to build a good product. It has to be profitable, and you have to get people to pay, stay, and refer. But yet riders are showing up and willing to race for free because they'd like to live their dream. And if they continue to show up, and then we get into the subject of riders, unions, and all that. But if we can get the keyboard in the community here to think about this, we're the only sport that it's okay for our athletes to pay to play. The stadium sells the tickets out, they sell the entertainment, and then the entertainment pays to show up to be an entertainer. Johnny, you know the numbers better than anybody. How many total factory riders, how many total factory bikes are there on the track? 450, 250. What'd you say, 25?
No,
250, 450?
450, there's 10 teams, 19 riders, and like 4 of them are injured. 250, there's 15 teams and 42 riders, and that's East and West, combined.
So you're looking at 62 total factory rider bikes that are on the track.
Rough number. Somebody's going to actually.
Rough number. Which is interesting that as you articulate the number, you say, oh, but there's this amount of people that are injured, which goes right back to a backup program that you should have both bikes underneath the awning, on and on and on it goes. But if we look at the fact, and I don't know, Rylan, how many total riders tried to qualify last week? How many total riders were there?
50, 56, 54, something like that.
Which is crazy because there's way more riders that own their pro license than 52 guys there.
Yeah, but you got to think it's just costs. I mean, just to all your guys' points, I mean, guys just can't afford to do that. That's my honest opinion on why there's not more guys showing up, is that they just can't afford, I mean, to go racing. I mean, the sign-up fees are crazy. And to just throw something in there to you guys, my personal opinion is that there's plenty of money. Like I don't agree with, or I don't like think about distribution of wealth or anything either, but I think there's plenty of billion-dollar companies out there that know nothing about motocross or supercross. But if we could go to them and show them what it is, I think, and bring them to the racing, get them the suites in the stadiums. I mean, we got off the path today, walking at the stadium today, and we got into one of the suites, and it's like super nice stuff that we could bring these companies in, and they could invest in the sport and really enjoy it. But I don't think we market it well. I just think it's marketed to us.
Well, Rylan, you make a good point. The problem is our numbers aren't good enough compared to even like curling or something. So it's hard to sell the sport of motocross and supercross. And no, coach, truthfully, like all of last year, supercross it was something like, 14 million views or something during.
What I'm shaking my head
like
to
a Friday
is
night football deal.
What I'm shaking my head to is,
and so how do you make it more entertainment? Is you need to have certain.
All you've got to do is let the personalities come alive. Our media they're not interested in letting the personalities come out. If you've got a big personality, they want to press it down. The first person that they've allowed to have a personality and do their own thing is Deegan. And that's because they went and did it in another arena called YouTube. And look at the success. We even talked about it on here, Johnny, about the success of the Formula One show on Netflix, bringing the team's personality, bringing the driver's personality, bringing sponsors' personality. Yeah. I was talking to a top agent, and we were talking about the JGR team, which to this day still blows my mind. The most successful NASCAR team in history can't make a successful Supercross team. What does that tell you about the series? I'm just going to leave that for what it's worth. Yeah. He said that Joe Gibbs, I think it was the Home Depot car, and I don't remember all the cars. I think he's got 2 or 3 cars over there. They offered to have the logo on the side of the motorcycle, and they declined it for free. Stop and think about that.
Wow.
If you don't think that we need to do a better job, as Rylan said, you've got these beautiful suites, every football game, basketball game, ice hockey, everything. What is Formula One? And we've had this argument before. I don't own a Formula One race car. You don't own a Formula One race car, but yet Formula One is moving their corporate offices to California. How did that happen?
AJ, we need crypto sponsors, Bybit or something.
I've talked about this kind of thing, and Rob, I completely agree with you. Like the whole, there's no money in the sport because there's none of this because there's none of that. Like I completely am on board with what you're saying there. And there definitely needs to be a bigger push to get the true personality of the riders back out into the stratosphere of entertainment. They need to have more stuff with their helmets off. They're like, I like how riders are doing their own like kind of vlog videos now. But like, I just feel like the sport itself, like I cannot believe there hasn't been a Netflix show made inside the pits at a Supercross race yet. Like, I cannot believe that. Like, for people inside the sport know that like riders like Cody Shock or whatever are like the most hilarious people in the world. But if you're just some random person watching it, you would have no idea that these guys are actually really funny, and could easily have much more followers, which would bring in more money if the sport did some due diligence to get their names out there instead of just promote the brand. They should be promoting the riders, not their own brand. And now, and I agree, Johnny, there definitely needs to be more crypto sponsorship in dirt bikes. I mean, I made some pretty good crypto money a year or 2 years ago, and I gave a bunch of random of my money out to a handful of privateers that needed gas money, and I gave it to them, and like they're like, can I pay you back? Like, no, don't pay me back. Like, don't worry about it. Like, just because I care about those guys, and I want to see them succeed, and I'm not like trying to like get pats on the back. I'm just saying that like I felt like I should do that because I had disposable income, and I want the sport to continue. And I feel like if more people had that mindset, we'd be in a better place. So I don't know.
Well, take it just one more step further. If you stop and think about exactly what AJ just said, those guys, and Chris talks about it all the time on how good Club MX's videos are, and look at the viewership of those. That video goes live, and Chris, you may know the number better than I do, how many views they get in a week, but it's 50, 60,000 pretty quick. And here we are saying, you've got a governing body that says, oh, that would never work. That would never work. That would never work. And to your point, AJ, all these guys that have a dynamic personality, Dean Wilson and all those guys, the Craig family, you know, he's not doing anything crazy. He's not doing, you know, Grandpa Earl like Wilson's doing, but look at how the viewership that the Craig family video gets. And now all of a sudden you've got these individuals that are creating their own vlogs. You know, AC was doing it very successfully 2 years ago. Yep. But yet you've got an industry, or you've got a governing body, whichever you want it. They're all one and the same. They're saying, no, that'll never work. That'll never work. And then you look at
they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what they're talking about.
Well, look at Deegan's numbers.
How do we fix it? How do we fix it? What's the?
We've talked about it. You do it.
Revolution, baby.
You go and listen to Gypsy Tales, and you listen to Astafin clearly spell out what needs to be done, how it needs to be done. And Chris had an interview with Kenny Watson, and he verbatim said everything that they did that was successful, he was told to take it down. The perfect example is he had Dodge. Remember when he had the RCH? He had the Ricky Carmichael team, Hart and Huntington. They had Dodge. They had the casino and everything else. And who shut down the Dodge sponsorship for the Ricky Carmichael team? Feld Motorsports said you can't have a Dodge vehicle on the ground. So what did he do? He puts a vehicle on the back of the transporter, takes it 3 inches off the ground, and they said, you can't have it. He goes, it's not on the premises. They said, no, that Dodge needs to leave. And when the car left the paddock, so did Dodge's money.
Wow.
And then Watson's a legend, though. He battled him every week. So
but listen to what
he shouldn't have to battle him. He shouldn't have to.
You have a team that is having to battle against the so-called promoters that are saying that they're trying to grow the sport, which brings our conversation full circle. It's so simple, Johnny, to fix. But the two people that are splitting the revenue, they're not going to let go of it without a fight. That you can be damn sure. Well, and that's what you're seeing.
What keeps you going, dude? If you know that potentially the system is broken and that there might not be, you know, you can be the exception or the rule. I'm not saying that nothing can happen, because you can very well be successful at this, but with the risk of not being successful, I mean, what keeps you going, dude? You're the one actually living this.
You know, what keeps me going is just my love for the sport. I've been riding and racing since I got on the dirt bike when I was 2 years old, and I, you know, family and everything, went through a lot, but I took there's probably a span where I didn't race much, but motocross, dirt bikes has been everything for me. I remember getting home from school and nobody would be home, and I'd just beg my dad to let me ride with nobody there. I'd go ride in the snow. I mean, being from Colorado, Johnny, you would just ride in the snow on a Honda 80 and just burn the tires off that thing. That's what keeps me going, is just the love for the sport.
Well,
And one thing that I was going to say to your guys' point of revenue is I got an email, and Feld has put together they have a photographer for the privateers this year. And they send out an email every week with a gallery of the privateers. I'm not allowed to send any pictures of me to Coach Robb to post for Complete Racing Solutions. I'm the only person that can post the pictures. I have to tag them. I have to say it's courtesy of Feld Motorsports. I'm not allowed to sell any of my merch out of my van at the races on the premises, which I think is insane, because I could take my box of shirts, put them up on my canopy, and people
I'd buy one.
love that, and people would want to buy it. And those are the things that I think that just kill the privateers. They're cutting down so many ways for us to put ourselves out there and make money, and it's just hurting us big time.
Wow. That's a shame.
Well, Chris, you and I talked about it. A lot of people don't realize, if you look at the fine print of the Outdoor Nationals, they can put you on the t-shirt and not have to pay you a royalty. What was it, Chris? If there's 3 other riders on the shirt, that's why you always see there's a myriad of more than one rider, because by this fine print in the contract, as long as there's a total of 3 riders on the merch shirt, they do not have to give you one penalty of royalty.
Wow. That's messed up.
Well,
Rylan, I'll be at Atlanta and Tennessee. You bring me 5 shirts, man. I'll buy them from you. We won't tell anybody. All right.
Under the table. Oh,
Yeah,
and hey, Rylan,
I got you.
You just need to have a Bitcoin address,
Yeah, I got you.
We
I
don't
got
want
you
to be
covered,
taxed.
bro.
You know what's funny? What's funny about that camera thing? I think it's awesome that they're giving you guys pictures, but what they're not telling you is, once you post it on your personal social media, Rylan, there's a fair use act. Anyone can grab it. Like, Coach can use it after that, and they can pound sand, because that's what it's for, and that's legally how it is. They'll probably give you crap, but just give them the fair use act. It was
Rylan, did they elaborate if you did use it?
Well, I mean, also how much does it hurt the sport of not being able to I get it, the helmet cams and stuff with the heads and stuff, but not being able to run GoPros and them copyright and stuff on outdoors and stuff. I mean, people want to see GoPro videos of track. That is so cool when you're hurt, or just for a kid and he's like, man, I want to go ride that track. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that people want to see, and I don't know why. I don't know why they don't want that stuff out there. It doesn't make any sense.
I remember Barsha was running it in his front number plate. You can't do that anymore either?
Yeah.
You can, but they own the footage.
I don't know about that, but
yeah,
exactly.
I could bring up
That's
the rule book,
whack.
but yeah, the rule book.
But here's the funniest thing. Here's the funniest thing out of everything that was just said about a GoPro. Did you guys happen to see the KTM challenge and what's zip tied to the front of the fender?
Of course.
A GoPro on the front of every KTM e-bike that's out there.
Of course.
How funny is that?
Hilarious.
I mean,
hey, wait a second. Geico Honda went.
I think
Geico went away, but yet all of a sudden Geico is now an Outdoor National sponsor. Wonder how that happened.
In fairness, they were before too, Coach. But yes, you're right. They took some of that money and kept it somewhere else.
And guys, with World Supercross, with competition breeds innovation, and that's why we have the whole Super Motocross thing, the influx in money. Like, there's a lot of good things that are happening. It might not just be happening in the progression that we'd want it to, because the sport has been the same for so long, but it is turning a tide where things are starting to change. And we could talk about this forever, guys. I do want to say, everybody that is in the chat, make sure that you subscribe and you hammer that like button like your WFO going through a set of monster
wow.
And make sure that you support every one of these SOBs in the description, because they bring out good content. And Rylan, where can we find you, dude? If we want to support you, buy your t-shirts, where can we support you?
All my t-shirts and everything are just RylanMunson38.com. That's been pretty cool. I put that together after I got hurt, so I'm really pumped on how the page turned out and stuff. And then just my Instagram's Rylan Munson38, and my YouTube is Rylan Munson. I've been really trying to get into the vlog things and stuff. It's honestly hard as a privateer, because it's hard to vlog when I'm trying to work on my bikes, and it's hard to vlog when I'm trying to get myself, everything going. It's hard. It's just one other thing that adds in, and it's like the last thing on my mind when things are, getting down to the wire. But I try to put out my content as best as I can. So that's where you guys can find me.
Well, I'll be rooting for you,
brother.
man.
Well,
Seriously.
you've got more
Thank you.
supporters in here. AJ, you're the other guest. Where can we find you and support you?
Yeah. First of all, I know a lot of people in motocross, not everyone has a plan B. I didn't have a plan B when I was dead set on becoming a professional racer. I had to throw that dream away. I got hurt way too much, like 27 broken bones, just gnarly run. So, that doesn't mean I can't be passionate for the sport of motocross. I still pay attention. I watch Cooksey, I watch you, I watch Coach Robb, and that's like with having a job and everything. And I always make it to a couple pro races a year. So anyway, I work for a company called BitBoy Crypto. Ben Armstrong is probably the largest crypto influencer in all of social media. I'm one of his head writer, research content department team. I do crypto myself. I've been full-time crypto for probably 3 years now. I've been in the industry for a while, but once I went full-time, it's kind of like going pro racing. Like it's no different other than I don't get hurt unless I like stub my toe or something, which is a great change. So other than that, you can find me on Twitter or Instagram at AJ Writes Crypto. And Johnny, Coach Robb, Rylan, everybody, thanks for having me here. It means a lot to be here. So thank you.
Hey, AJ.
Hell yeah.
When you write these scripts, I'm curious, like, what do you write? Like, is it like a play? Like, what do you, I guess I'm not.
Well, hold on. I'm not about to give my money making formula live on a show.
Okay. So we got to go check it.
We
can talk about it off air. We can talk.
Yeah, we can talk about it off air.
Off air.
Yeah.
Look at you,
Okay.
Cooksey.
I was curious. So
It's cool.
No. Yeah, there's a lot of production value that goes into even this silly stuff, even the shit show. Make sure you hit that like button. Cooksey, what's your other YouTube channel?
Actually, you know what? I'm going to call out everybody. Head over to Cooksey Media tomorrow. I'll be doing a live show after qualifying practice before the night show. I'll be doing it live, and I'm going to talk some Deegan over there. We didn't talk much Deegan today, but the Deegans, they came hard at me this week, and I've got some interesting thoughts, but I'm going to save them for that show.
You know what's funny? Really fast, Johnny. I actually talked to Brian Deegan about crypto at Budds Creek.
Well, what did he say? Did he say
he was like, because he saw my shirt? I was wearing like an Ethereum shirt or something, and he was like, "Oh, like you do crypto?" And I was just like, "Yeah, like I've been doing crypto like full time." And he's like, "No way, that's crazy." He was like, "I got some Bitcoin, but I just like wrote it to the bottom. What should I do?" I was like, "Just hold it." And he was like, "All right, I'll just hold on to it." It was hilarious, bro.
That's cool.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, he's just gonna hold it. Good plan.
Digital gold. That's what I'm saying. Coach, where can we find you?
Well, if you're looking for anything relevant to health, wellness, or fitness, or racing at any level, you can find us at CompleteRacingSolutions.com. I've brought back the Coach Robb podcast. Toolman Dan's my co-host on that. We do 2 shows a month. One is general fitness, and one is very sport specific, not just moto, but anything that involves, high-end performance. So we drop those the couple Mondays out of every month. So you can go to Coach Robb podcast. You can go to CompleteRacingSolutions.com, and please support the Coach Robb Beams YouTube channel. That we're just sitting on the edge of 21,000 subscribers. And, it's great for me because unlike you guys do a great job of bringing what's going on, keeping the relevant news, like you say, Chris, now you've kind of sparked my interest for tomorrow. I didn't realize they came after you hard. You didn't say anything to us this week, but I'm very interested. My channel is more about, trying to solve frustrations, whether it be about injuries, nutrition, sports psychology, strength, flexibility, all that goes with it. And our channel is just completely unique. It's just, we're there for human performance. I have changed my business model effective January 1st. Every single day, you will be getting a new video answering questions. We've got about 4,700 emails and DMs that have come in the last year. And it's my goal is to every day, I'm going to get an answer out to you guys about a frustration. So that'll be 365 answers a year. And you can find those on Coach Robb Beams on Instagram. I put the video there, and they'll also be on YouTube. So I like YouTube because I can engage with your questions a little bit quicker. I'm not a big fan of Instagram. It's hard fat fingers and thumbs don't work on small phones. So thank you, Johnny. Once again, great show. AJ, it's awesome to see you. Rylan, I'm beyond pumped for you for this weekend, man.
Go get him, Riley.
Good luck.
Yeah, get him,
Till
Rylan.
next time, keep it WFO, bro.
Thanks, guys.
My 280.
Awesome. Great show.